Are you a filmmaker or someone wanting to pursue film and have ever wondered if film school was actually necessary? Last year, I graduated with my BFA in Film Studies at Toronto Metropolitan University, or what was formerly known as ryerson. And that school takes on a 50% film theory and then 50% like hands-on learning type of style, which I actually really liked. But it was a full 4 years of my life. And when I was younger, when I was initially applying to film school, I just kept on wondering, like, do I really need this? So today I thought I would talk about what I learned in the 4 years at university. So what I touch on today is really just the tip of the iceberg. Like, I'm really boiling it down to like the one thing that I mainly remember from each year, or just like somewhat of my biggest takeaway. My first year consisted of strictly shooting analog. So we shot on a Bolex, so 16 millimeter film, and we were expected to pay for everything. And it was really, really expensive. I remember the rolls of film were a little over, I think a little over 50, and then the processing was around 50 as well. So every time we shot a roll, it would be about $100. And the thing is, sometimes we would mess up and that roll would just be blank or over or underexposed because naturally we're learning, but once it's shot, that's it. Like, you've already spent that money to shoot on it and to process it. So first year was really, really expensive. Though I adored shooting analog. It was really therapeutic to sit in the editing suite and physically splice and tape the film together. And it felt really meditative at the time. Like, I still to this day, I wish I could shoot more film. I mean, one roll of film would get you 3 minutes of movie time. But because the resources were so expensive, it made me be really intentional with everything that I shot because I couldn't afford to waste film. It taught me how to really plan ahead of time for my shoots. It forced me to do just a lot more pre-production. And I didn't even know really what pre-production was before first year. Like, I didn't understand that, oh, I should, make a shot list, like write down every single shot that I need to get and the coverage needed to make the film and get the story across. And it's funny, like, looking back on my first year films, they were really bad. By the time I was like done editing, I was like, this was not what I imagined it to be. And that only ever happened when I didn't plan properly. So by the third film that we had to do, because we had three total, by the third one, I actually fully grasped what it meant to plan for a shoot. I remember being so frustrated because I would, on the day, just kind of shoot shots that I just made up on the spot. And then, once I started editing, I would realize, okay, I didn't actually get what I needed to get the story across. And that was a really big learning curve for me. Another thing that's really interesting with shooting film is that it's completely silent, and we weren't allowed to use music on top because I remember my prof very specifically saying that sometimes just adding music can make you lazy, a lazy filmmaker, because anything can kind of look good if you have good music on top. Because it was silent, it forced you, like, you had to really focus on your narrative. And how do you shoot a narrative that's silent? It's purely visual. So I also really appreciated that aspect of film as well. And then COVID hit. And second year was fully online and it sucked. It really did. I think from what I remember, our second semester, we actually got to meet up with our groups to shoot the films. I remember second year was really fast paced. Like, the turnaround period of having to plan your shoot and shoot it was 2 weeks total. So we had like a week or maybe half a week to write a script that our prof would give us a prompt, and then we would have to create a script accordingly within that week and then plan for the next week to have it shot. And then like we had like maybe another little bit to edit. But yeah, there were 3 films total. I very vividly remember my prof saying that a dead giveaway to a beginner filmmaker is that they spoon feed their audience. A beginner filmmaker feels the need to visually show every little detail by shooting inserts or close-ups of actions that don't necessarily need close-ups, because the audience can understand what's going on without you having to necessarily always show it. So, for example, if a character is handing a briefcase to another character, we don't need a close up of their hands doing that exchange. We can just stay in that wide, and the audience knows, well, that, briefcase or luggage or whatever is getting passed along. Or just, stay in that wide or medium, whatever that master shot is. Pretty much he's saying, like, when you do use close ups and inserts, just make it really intentional. Like, there needs to be a good reason why you're having to draw so much attention to that moment. It's not a strict rule. I think like that rule can be really fluid, but I think it's true that when you're watching like novice filmmakers work, sometimes you do see too many cuts, too much coverage that doesn't always feel necessary. And stylistically though, sometimes it just works really, really well. Second year was actually probably one of my favorite years because I felt like it was the least stressful. Third year was really rough because it was also still really deep in COVID, and 90% of my classes were still online. I was becoming really antisocial. I saw a lot of my peers had the privilege of like living downtown, so they weren't commuters, and I felt really separated from my peers because wasn't getting to make as many friends. And that's my biggest regret of third year, because one thing I realized is film, a lot of it is networking and knowing people, and a lot of the opportunities you get are from people that you've met on set or people that you've worked with, and then they refer you to other people. And because I barely had worked with people, I just felt really behind. Like I wasn't getting invited to as many, things outside of school that I think would have really benefited me. Yeah, I think I just missed out on a lot of opportunities because of this. I developed just so much social anxiety third year that I never had before. When things started to like finally lift in third year, I still wasn't really going out and meeting people and going to events and doing extracurriculars like how other people were. And that's still one of my biggest regrets, is like not going to those film kid events or like female director networking events. I don't know, things like that really I think still hinders me to this day. I don't know, my program was really small, and I think it was 80 people per year yet accepted, but like everyone knows each other, and I felt like no one knew me because I just didn't socialize. And to anyone watching this, please like go out to these film events and like just meet people, go to screenings, go to like anything you can just to show face. And yeah, fourth year was so interesting. Fourth year was our thesis project. You could either write or produce a film, and then work on a couple other films, or you can not write or produce and then you work on like a minimum of 6 other films. So that's what I ended up doing. Originally, my friend and I wrote a script to co-direct together, but then our profs were really harsh. And we realized, you know what, if we're not gonna make this in school, we can easily, not easily, but we can do it outside of school. Like it's not that deep. We pulled our script out and last minute decided to do streaming. And that was such a terrible decision because every role was filled already for all these thesis films, and we were just scrambling, and it was rough. Although it was like extremely stressful and just like a really tough period of time of scrambling, it taught me how to just say yes to things. There were so many roles that I ended up getting to try out in my thesis year that I don't think I would have gone to try otherwise. And it was just because I kept saying yes. It really made me a more well-rounded filmmaker, I'd like to think, because now I have a grasp of so many different departments in film. My main roles throughout my thesis year were what did I do? I worked in camera department. I worked in G&E, and I was like a set photographer for a couple of films. I can't remember what else I did. My biggest learning curve was probably G&E. Like I did lighting in my previous years, but not to the scale of a thesis full-blown production. Like all of these sets had at least like 20 people crews. You know, I think it's really important to be patient with yourself because you're not going to just automatically be good at things. So it's important to just be kind to yourself and, you know, just try your best. Everyone, luckily in film school, this was, I think, the greatest benefit to it, is everyone's learning and it's somewhat of like a judgment free zone because we all are aware that we're all starting off. We're not going to be like the best at these roles. Know that everything just takes practice, but the only way to practice is to throw yourself into those situations. Otherwise, how will you ever get the opportunity to learn these things? Film school is such a privilege because, you know, it's very expensive. Like university is very expensive, college is very expensive. It's such a privilege to even have a family that would let me do like a bachelor's of fine art degree. Like I'm so lucky to have gotten to do an art degree, you know? Like a lot of families would be like, that's not even like a real degree. To all the people that are thinking of going into film school, I personally really loved it. It wasn't perfect by any means. My program is so incredibly far from perfect, and there's so many things that could have been different, could have been better, but I still learned so much, and I don't know how I would have learned these things without film school, to be honest. And the biggest benefit to film school is the network you create and all the people you get to meet, because these are a lot of the people you'll be likely working with in the future, or hopefully, you know, if you like them. And these are the people that you can lean on, and hopefully they can lean on you for their future projects and whatnot. So, yeah, that's it, I guess. And anyways, I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope this was interesting and kind of gave you an insight into how film school can be structured. This is Canadian film school. I'm so curious to anyone that lives anywhere else in the world, if they went to film school, what's it like? And that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.